This is NBC 17 First News at 4 p.m.
Good afternoon, I'm Donna Gregory.
And I'm Heidi Deja. There are waiting lists and tickets just to stand in line and get a chance to buy PlayStation 2. That is PlayStation 2, the hottest game to hit the market, and it arrives in the U.S. tomorrow. But some people are standing in line already trying to buy this toy. NBC 17's Larry Pickett is live in Raleigh with all the excitement. Larry?
Hey Heidi, that's right. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. at Target and along with other area consumer electronics stores, it will be packed with PlayStation 2 fans, and it's expected to be the biggest consumer launch in history.
Our dream from a business point of view is to grow the market for computer entertainment into a superset of music and movies, so that video gaming and computer entertainment becomes a legitimate mass market.
With features like a DVD player and a CD player, the PlayStation 2 is not only being called a video game system, but an entertainment console.
I think it's going to be the future of home entertainment.
Are there any specific features that you're looking for on it?
Yeah, the DVD player and the internet.
Oh, just killer graphics, and I love the backwards compatibility.
You remember it clearly. It is the year 2000, and you see the bright flyer taped to a dirty KB toy store window in the mall. It reads the PlayStation 2 is on its way, and your heart drops. Your eyes start to twitch and your body becomes enveloped with a warm, comforting nostalgia, like when you opened that PlayStation 1 in the winter during the 1995 holiday season. Yes, this is it. Sony is back. As the butterflies begin to flutter around your insides, you turn the volume on your Sony CD player up as it bellows U2's Beautiful Day while running down the mall in your overly baggy jeans. The PS2 is on its way. Life does not get any better than this. Fast forward to October 26. In North America alone, Sony amassed over 500,000 PS2s sold, making a bold statement that Sony was here to stay, and the success of the previous effort was not to make them a one-hit wonder. Take Sega's Dreamcast for contrast. They set a launch day record, selling over 220,000 units their first day at launch during the famous 9999 campaign in the United States. While those numbers were amazing and a surefire bounce back from what was ailing them, even Sega had to take a back seat to the sales numbers that Sony was putting out in 2000 across all regions.
One of the sector's big players is Sega Dreamcast. Mike shows us how it is hoping to blunt the heavily promoted launch this fall of Sony's PlayStation 2.
Just another day at the office for Peter Moore, president and COO of Sega of America Dreamcast, the San Francisco-based arm of the Japanese gaming giant that has managed to push the Dreamcast console system into the promised land of 2 million sell-throughs. As an industry, video gaming is bigger than Hollywood.
Our retail receipts for consoles and software will be bigger.
Sony still owned 60% of the market share at the time Sega launched the Dreamcast, and the momentum that the PS1 gave them pushed well into 2000, even before the launch of their next-gen console. Sega was in trouble when PS2 launched, and this was all without mentioning the success of Nintendo's N64 that also dug thorns into their side. Surely, the inclusion of a DVD functionality proved to be arguably one of PS2's greatest weapons, but that is something we will cover in greater detail later on. On behalf of Gamestalgia, I'm the QA Ninja. The PlayStation 2 is responsible for so many memories and legendary numbers across the board. But before we get into all those games of nostalgia, let's talk a little bit more of the specs and features and a little bit of what's underneath the hood. The PlayStation 2 specs and features were truly something of majesty for its time and even for today's standards. Looking at some of the games like Resident Evil 4, Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness, God of War 2, and Metal Gear Solid 3, one can see that their graphics really held up and have aged as beautifully as the finest bottle of Pinot Noir, boasting 294 MHz for a processor, which is more than 8 times that of the PS1. This new offering was so much more powerful at every turn. The PS2 had 4 megabytes of video RAM and the DVD driver to boot. In fact, of all the 6th generation consoles that were out at the time, the PS2 was the only one that could fully play DVDs out of the box without any modifications. Why this mattered and what made this such a huge deal was that DVD players of the time were still fairly new and expensive, and at $2.99, this console was a more affordable option. So you could literally spend an afternoon playing Tekken Tag Tournament and then switch your discs to watch Russell Crowe and the Gladiator. It was a reality that streamlined early 2000s entertainment in the comfort of your living room. And Meet the Parents starring Ben Stiller was the #1 box office movie to hit DVDs at the PS2's North American launch. Cutting-edge visuals and graphics and the built-in CD/DVD drive all made the PlayStation 2 more than just a console, but an actual media center to which set the tone for what fans should expect from next-gen consoles. More value for the money.
And now, it wouldn't be a proper E3 without introducing the man known in some circles as the father of the PlayStation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ken Kutaragi.
Hello everyone, Ken here. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all users around the world. Nowadays, when I speak about the PlayStation, people joyfully tell me their own PlayStation experience. And as the creator of it, this makes me very, very happy.
You can't talk about the success of the PS2 without talking about its founder. To say Ken Kutaragi was an absolute visionary would be an understatement. From having a hand in developing the original PlayStation to working with developers to make an astronomical leap from the previous generation, Kutaragi had a knack for quality home entertainment. When approached about the launch in Japan, Kutaragi stated, "5 years ago, there was not as many people today. This morning, I was surprised by the number of people waiting to buy their PlayStation 2, and also particularly by the impressive number of media." And he was right. The PS2 set records globally, having already sold 3 million units in just 5 months in Japan, figures that are absolutely unheard of to this day, and that was before it reached North America. Part of the PlayStation 2 legacy has to do with its sales and the records that it broke. Take this console sales diagram for example. Dreamcast had started off very strong, setting its own initial record back in 1999. However, when PlayStation 2 launched, it took over and broke its records. And then of course, when you see the next generation with Xbox and GameCube entering the competition, you could still see that PlayStation 2 was still dominant in its venture. Through each year, PlayStation 2 was the leader in sales of consoles, regardless of the popularity of the Xbox. It wasn't until 2003 that the Xbox had overtaken the PlayStation 2, and then PlayStation 2 overtook them. And then the next generation, with the advent of the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 and the Nintendo Wii, it wasn't until 2006 that the Nintendo Wii would take over PlayStation 2 as the leading console seller, as well as the PlayStation 3. This speaks volumes as to how long the PlayStation 2 was the leading console, and it amassed an entire record of 159 million units total sold in its entire lifetime span. A record that is still not to be beaten by any console anytime soon. The PS2 was legendary for its time and redesigned from the PS1. Coming to the front, we have dual USB ports. It was actually the first console to have this. And then coming around the side, you can notice a more futuristic design, which houses now an expansion bay for extended hard drive space, and now digital output for surround sound. And coming from the top, you have the legendary PS2 logo, which is a redesign from the original PlayStation logo. And if we go right back to the front of the console, you'd now have 2 slots for memory. For the memory card itself, it was 8 megabytes originally for the PS2 compared to the original 1 megabyte for the PS1. And then of course, you have the DualShock 2, a legendary controller, which was a simple redesign of the PlayStation 1 DualShock, featuring a now analog button. It was surefire proof that sometimes keeping the original design itself is necessary.
PS2's marketing campaign was an aggressive and one for the ages. At this rate, we have to take into account simply how much pressure had to follow up regarding their initial success garnered from their first console entry, but also the Dreamcast that launched the year prior and the GameCube set to release soon after. For Sony, it was now or never that they truly cement themselves into the pantheon of video game home entertainment, especially with the impending release of Microsoft's Xbox also on the horizon. Here are some clips of memorable commercials. For Gamestalgia and the Fireside Gaming Podcast, I'm Anthony Rivardo. Now back to the QA Ninja for more.
Let us discuss some standout titles of this console icon. Starting with the revamped Grand Theft Auto series, while GTA debuted in 1997 on the PS1, many credit the PS2 with having taken the series to new heights. Boasting an open-world environment, giving the player seemingly free reign, this series essentially borrowed ideas from Dreamcast's open-world adventure Shenmue and expanded upon it in a fictional universe. The PS2 trilogy did extremely well. In fact, San Andreas is the highest selling PS2 game of all time after it launched in 2004 with an outstanding 17 million copies sold. Sharing the same engine as Vice City and GTA 3, it took place in a pseudo West Coast California world jam-packed with exploration and over-the-top violence. Another solid title that continued on from the previous console generation was Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. Selling over 7 million copies, Sons of Liberty took the concept of stealth gaming to a whole new level with unique gameplay mechanics that rewarded the player for exhibiting great patience when traversing the soldier-filled landscapes. Metal Gear Solid always embraced action-oriented realism over exaggerated cartoonish violence, and Sons of Liberty is no exception. It is smart and a well-constructed game that is worth a player's time, provided they can handle the stealth-first, shoot-second nature of this title. The 7th generation of gaming was important in that it marked the first time where arguably most home consoles exhibited better graphical performance to the arcade counterparts. With the arcade market slowly dwindling away during the PS2 run, gamers could still get their arcade fighting fix with such titles like Virtua Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Undoubtedly, the most successful fighting game released for the PS2 was Tekken 5. This beautiful fighter stayed true to the original formula that made them so popular in the previous generation, helped stamp Namco as the premier champion for 3D fighting games. Tekken 5 sold 6 million copies. Max Payne, while released on other consoles, did especially well for the PS2, selling over 2 million copies after its release in December 2001. A comic film noir-style action thriller, this game is often credited for championing the slow-motion bullet time feature that we have seen in other subsequent games. The storyline is dark, cloudy, gritty, and doused with flames of gunfire at every turn. In many respects, it is one of the best written storylines with levels that play out like a movie where you control a former NYPD detective, Max Payne, on the road to unforgiving vengeance. The PlayStation had been always the exclusive home to the esteemed driving simulator series Gran Turismo. So when it was announced that the PS2 would be getting the next iteration the summer of 2001, it was met with great anticipation, and it did not disappoint. Often touted as one of the greatest racing games ever, GT3 sold almost 15 million copies, placing it second only to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. GT3 features hundreds of vehicles ranging from an Aston Martin Vanquish to a gorgeous Dodge Viper. Welcome back. Hope you're enjoying today's episode. Now just a quick word from our sponsor. The GUNMJO Wireless Honeycomb Mouse is everything you need in a gaming mouse. Lightweight, fully customizable, and responsive. Best of all, it won't break the bank. Capable of running 18 hours on a full charge. You can change the DP and light settings by buttons or by using the amazing software provided. Grab yours today. Link in the description below. The beauty within PlayStation 2's graphics lie comfortably within the architecture and motherboard. The CPU created 3D images and polygons and then sent that 3D data to the GPU. In turn, the GPU would then render it into 2D textures in a process called rasterization. To put it into a graphics comparison, take the 32-bit version of Sony's would-be mascot, Crash Bandicoot. The polygons in his body consisted of about 730 triangular shapes. Whereas in contrast, the PS2 version of the famous character churned out a whopping 2,200 triangular polygons for the PS2. By comparison, it was arguably the largest generational leap in terms of graphics and performance, bar none.
The PlayStation 2 is a historic, mass-market appliance that fundamentally changes society in the way the printing press did. IGN February 2000.
The community has been amazing with keeping the PS2's hardware alive and well. Working with freemcboot on a memory card, which is essentially the gateway for PS2 homebrews, we can install Open PS2 Loader, or better known as OPL, onto a USB flash drive and add game images to them. This allows you the ability to play games directly from USB, preserving the disk drive. The caveat is that the USB is a 2.1 during some full scene animations, but it hardly affects gameplay at all, seeing that we are working directly from the motherboard and not emulation. You can convert your game library into ISO files or find what you are looking for through simple online searches, and in a matter of time, you will have a vast collection at your fingertips while still having the satisfaction of using your old original console, be it the PS2 Fat model or the Slim. A more recent way of being able to play your PlayStation 2 library is via an SD card. Insert it into a modified memory card. The perks of using this is for greater storage and the ability to view full FMV without the issues noticed when loading games via USB drive. In order to make this possible, thanks to in part by the modified card that can house the SD card for storage, while working in tandem with freemcboot and OPL, this was developed back in 2015. The process is simple in that you can insert the memory card into a slot and then insert the freemcboot memory card into slot 2. freemcboot is a soft-modded program on a memory card that allows the PlayStation 2 to play homebrews such as Fortuna and OpenLoader, which is a very popular option to house your PS2 library via USB or SD card. freemcboot lets you back up your game images, or what are known as ISO files. These soft-modded programs are compatible with both PS2 Fat models as well as the Slim.
PlayStation 2 emulation is alive and well, and it is one of the best ways to relive the memories or play games that eluded your childhood, naturally giving you the opportunity to experience titles at one point you never had the chance to play. Emulation on this console is more than stellar. In fact, many modern PC setups should have no trouble running most of the games, and this includes titles that run at 60 frames per second and oftentimes even upscaled to 4K. You would need to make sure you have PS2 BIOS files, and a Google search on Internet Archive will have you well on your way. Locating ISO files is the same way. Once you have your PC controller set up, simply boot up your favorite game and you will be ready to play. Emulation allows you to save on a virtual memory card whenever you want. And you can even play other regions provided you have the BIOS file for it. Also, the emulation community is constantly making bug fixes and updates, which can be seen on the main page link in the description below. This has been a Gamestalgia production. Back to you, QA Ninja.
To say that the PlayStation 2 had a lasting impact would be putting it lightly. While its legacy has been cemented like the skyscrapers of Manhattan, it is challenging to narrow down why so many other consoles have failed to dethrone the royal behemoth with regards to sales and longevity. It has become synonymous with uncompromised greatness in the video game world, setting standards and raising the home console bar to proportions seemingly unreachable to both its predecessors and newer generations. From the library that extends over 4,000 titles to the technology that forever changed the landscape of home entertainment for the new millennium, the PlayStation 2 is much more than a successful console. It is a giant amongst men and an essential vehicle to our childhood memories at the turn of the century. On behalf of Gamestalgia, I'm the QA Ninja. We hope you enjoyed the story of the greatest launch ever.